Okay. All right, we're recording.
All right.
Let's welcome Phil Shell here to the summit. So I'm happy, Phil, that you're here. And Phil is a managing broker in the Arvada office at my company, Remax Alliance. And so glad you're here today.
It's an honor. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, it's great. And like we were just chatting before, so you're pretty much one of the last speakers here at the summit. And the reason I wanted to do that is that I want to kind of go through, talk about core values, talk about, why we do what we do as realtors, why we kind of battle through all these issues, kind of look at, big picture. And I took the workshop with you. It's been a little while, a little over a year now, a year and a half. And it was one of the most helpful workshops I've ever been to. So we're going to go through a core values exercise here today. And I think it's going to be very, very powerful for all of you. So before we start, I have a PDF. It's on Phil's speaker page. So go to that PDF, and I want you to print that out because it's going to be a lot better for you to have the hard copy. So go ahead and pause the video right now and print out the PDF, the core values exercise. And then we're going to go through this together. So kind of a little housekeeping up front here, Phil. So let's kind of talk a little bit about kind of big picture. I've been a realtor for like 13 years now. You've been a realtor for, a lot more years than I have. Why do we keep doing what we're doing? We kind of battle day to day. There's a lot of, stress that we go through. Do you have any kind of insights there to kind of help us?
Well, I think we stay in what we do many, many times to be of service. I think that's, hopefully the core of why we do what we do. And certainly, we can make a good living and have a good life in the real estate business, and that's really what it's all about. So I do think, Mario, that sometimes we get mired down in the mechanics of the brokerage, mechanics of the transaction, the details of dealing with the little things, whether it's the listing broker or the seller wants this, or I got to get my buyer to do that, or my seller to do that. And we get too engrossed in those kind of details, and I think that causes us a lot of stress. If we can rise above it and detach from the transaction and not be so necessarily attached to the closing, attached to all the little details, and just relax with it and just try to be purely of service, I think it really, really takes the pressure out of it.
I think the thing that's kind of hard, I know for me and for some other agents, a lot of our self-esteem, a lot of our identity gets wrapped up in our job and what we do. So if a deal goes bad, it's like the end of the world. How do we kind of deal with that?
Well, I would say, first of all, through detachment. I think that's at the core of it. We've got to detach from the outcome, because the reality is we don't have any control over whether this transaction is going to close or not. Buyer seller gets hit by a truck, it doesn't appraise, we get past inspection. There's a myriad of things that can go wrong that we don't have any control over. So it's our desire to control that certainly creates a lot of stress. So if we can let go of that, that is a big piece of it. And then, of course, if we can remember to try to be effective in our communications and as we're moving through the transaction, rather than right or wrong or good or bad, we can suspend right, wrong, good, or bad and just try to be effective, I think things begin to slow down and work a little bit more. The issue, however, with right and wrong, good or bad, we can't suspend those if our ego is right there trying to defend us and saying, baloney, we're right and they're wrong and we're going to do it this way. So, sometimes we just got to let that go so that we can work through a problem rather than having to be right.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, but I think it is hard, and I know exactly what you're saying when you say detach. But how do you detach sometimes? Because we want to be successful, we want to close the deals, we want to make 100K,
Right.
150K, 200K,
Right.
whatever our goal is.
Sure.
And how do you yet detach at the same time?
Well, I think you set a very strong intention for the overall outcome. So whether that's the year, it's transaction numbers, it's dollars. So my intention is very strong to make $150,000. I intend to do that. Now, any one particular transaction is not going to get me there. Now, we know that we're going to close the vast, vast majority of the transactions, but they're not all going to close. Some of them we're going to lose. So if I can detach from the outcome of any one particular transaction and have a very strong intention to get to my stated goal, I think if we can separate those two things, and it doesn't sound reasonable to separate them on the surface here, but I think if you think it through, I think it becomes very reasonable. When I say detach from the outcome, Mario, I'm just talking about detaching from the closing, detaching from that end piece, not detaching from being of service, not detaching from, trying to deliver the very best service, being, as authentic through the transaction as I possibly can be. If I detach and I'm not attached to the overall outcome, I can rise above the transaction. I can see clearly much farther, much deeper into the transaction from that position. And in that place, I can give much better advice, and we can avoid a lot of the problems that, quite honestly, probably close a considerable amount more of those transactions because I'm not attached. If I'm attached, I'm likely not going to say the same things I'm going to say if I'm detached. If there's something that needs to be conveyed, I just create stress for myself because, gosh, I don't want to send them this bad news. But if I have no attachment to the outcome, I can have that discussion about the bad news and generally work through it without creating all the drama and the stress for the client.
Yeah, I think one thing I kind of picked up what you said there is, we have no control over what happens, but look at it overall. So you're going to make, 100K or whatever your goal is. You're going to achieve your goal because that one outcome is not going to prevent you from reaching that goal.
Exactly. And to the contrary, I mean, over the years, and I've been involved in this, I've witnessed it many, many times where we have a problem in the transaction is trying to come apart, we're fighting to save it, and we're plugging this hole and plugging that hole as the ship's sinking, and we fight it, we drive everybody through an emotional roller coaster for a couple of weeks, and then the deal crashes anyway. And so, if you step back from that and look at it from a very objective position, many times you can tell there is no saving this. It's just better to cut the quick and be done with it and move on to something else.
Yeah, I think that's good. So when you look at real estate as a career, so you've been a realtor and a managing broker now for a lot of years, right? How many years have you been in the business?
This actually is my 40th year. I'm going into my 41st year in 2016. And I've been a managing broker now for about 10 years.
And to me, that's amazing because, I've been in the business 13 years, and sometimes it feels like it's 40 years.
Sometimes a week can feel like it's 40 years.
So, how do we kind of battle through that? How do you stay energized? I know you do a lot of projects and you get a lot of things going on, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for you because you have respect for the business, you have respect for other agents like myself. What is it that you do to be able to do a career for 40 years and still feel energized?
That is an awesome question. And, I gotta pause and just kind of think about that. But I really believe that my career, having gone through as many years as I have, has gone through a lot of different mindsets and a lot of different morphing. Today, for me, what is most important for me is to get from point A to point Z in a real estate transaction and make it as fun and as stress-free for everybody involved. It's truly being of service. That's the only way I can describe that. It isn't about the mechanics of the brokerage and license law and ethics and contract law and what's in the contract. All those things play a major role in this, but when you bundle it all together, I've got to deliver the best possible experience for the client, not just the service, but the experience. So that is what I would say is mastering the craft of selling real estate, not my vocation, not my career, but a craft, and mastering that craft in a way that I deliver the highest level of expectation and service. If I get involved in a transaction and my client, my side of the table, is getting upset with the other side of the table, I got to stop and ask myself, what is it that I'm doing that's contributing to that? How am I conveying the information to the other side, or filtering the information coming in from the other side, that I'm creating stress? And so, sometimes the information isn't very kind and it's not very nice, but can I package that in a way to try to defuse it so that I create as little stress for my clients as I possibly can?
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think plus over the years, you've developed relationships with your customers, with the other agents. Is that a big part of kind of the fulfillment that you feel, being a realtor all these years?
Great question, Mario. And, right now we've got a lot of people coming into the business, so we know we don't know as many of them as we used to, perhaps. But, at the end of the day, I think we got to mind our own reputation. And in trying to cement a good reputation, we've got to be kind. We've got to be ethical. We've got to be straightforward. We've got to be as good as we possibly can to the other agent as well. The reality is, I've been in the business for 40 years. I have spent a lot more time with you than I have with any particular buyer or seller. And I've spent a lot more time with my colleagues than I've spent with any particular buyer or seller. Now, that's not to say that I'm not there for them and want to deliver the best service and give them the best advice and keep them out of trouble. That's not what I'm suggesting. But what I am suggesting is that I've got to be cautious about the way I treat others in this business. If we don't have a good reputation, we're done. We're toast. So it's very, very critical that we mind our reputation within the business. Let's just be kind to each other out there. We all encounter problems. We all encounter trip hazards within the business, pinch points in our own careers and in our cash flows and so forth. But that's all they are. They're just little trip hazards and little pinch points. I don't need to get aggressive with another broker or lose my temper over certain things that are temporary. I've got to mind that reputation. I got to remember who I am at my core and deliver that. I want to be a personification of my value structure. I do not want to be a bullhorn of my ego.
And it's good. This is a good transition here because you are somebody who is very aligned with your personal values based on what you do, being a realtor, managing broker. And what can we do to make sure that we are in alignment with our values so that way we can enjoy what we do, our vocation?
Well, it's a great question again, Mario. And here's what I'd say. I'm going to go a little deep on you here a little bit. We don't take time to really think about at our core who we are. And so, we know pretty much who we are, but we don't really focus on it. We don't pay much attention. And then life's noise happens. And those pinch points happens, and those trip hazards happen, and we get a flat tire, and we got just life happens, and in the midst of that noise, we forget who we are at that core, at that center, and many times, when we step outside of those boundaries, we act not necessarily in service to ourselves. We act beyond those boundaries of those core values, and that's when we wound ourselves. That's when we do something and we step back from it and go, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. How many times have we unleashed and really yelled at somebody only for a couple minutes? I mean, it feels delicious at the moment, but a few minutes later you go, God, I wish I hadn't have done that. And so how do I get to a place where I stop myself before it happens rather than regretting after that happens? And I think it's just taking a little bit of time to think about at my core, at my center, what are my values? I believe this to my core. I think every human being on the planet wants to be kind. They want to do the right thing. I think it's incumbent upon us to give them an opportunity and permission to indeed do exactly that. And so I've got to be kind. I've got to bring my highest self to any given situation. I've got to bring my most authentic self in order to give them that permission to do that, especially with the client. If you think about that, If the client is fearful that if they tell me the truth that I'm going to have judgment and jump on them, they're not going to tell me the truth. So I've got to create a very safe environment for them, and the only way to do that is to be as authentic as they possibly can be, and to be a personification of those values and have no attachment to that closing.
So let's go through the exercise, because you've touched on it a few times, because you are very aligned with your values. And this is the PDF that I wanted everybody to print out. So Phil's going to step you through here how to identify what are your core values. And like I said, I've done this exercise. It's very, very powerful, and it really kind of opens up your eyes about who you are as an individual.
Thank you, Mario. It's really very much a very powerful exercise. And I think as you go through the adjectives that are on that page of the various values, I think what you want to do is look at those, the ones that resonate with you. Ideally, we want to pick 20 of those. Out of all of those that are on that page, I want to pick 20 of those, the ones that resonate with me and the ones that I want more present in my life. And, I would take a few minutes to decompress. If you just got done with some, stressful situation, I would decompress from that before you get into this exercise, because we want to shed all of life's noise to get to the core of us, and then to begin to look at this paperwork and this exercise and really get down to, fundamentally who I am. So I want to look at this and pick out 20 of those that resonate with me that I want more present in my life. And
so would you want them to put a check mark by it?
Exactly. Just a little check mark or an X by it. That'd be great. And if there's a value that's not on the page, write it down. If there's something there that's missing, go ahead and write it down. Pick 20 of those, and that would be the first step of the exercise.
Yeah, so go ahead right now. If you're able to, you're watching this at your desk, go ahead, stop the video, take out that sheet of paper that I had you print out, this PDF, and go ahead and check mark 20 of these values that you identify with the most. So now they've done it, Phil, so you can go forward.
Okay, so now I've taken a look at the 20. Those resonate with me. I want to take the 20 that I picked, and now I want to core that down, pare it down to 10. I want to pick 10. What are the 10 most that resonate with me the most? Out of the 20 I picked, how do I get rid of half of them? Well, look at the other ones, because in many, many cases, I think you'll find that one of those adjectives means multiple things to you. So core that down, chop it down to 10 of those now.
Okay, so go ahead and stop the video. And I'm kind of being a little anal about this, but I think this is very, very powerful, and you need to do it the way Phil is describing it. So stop the video, take the time. Out of that 20, go ahead and mark the 10. Okay, go ahead now, Phil.
Okay, now it gets real fun. Excuse me. I promise this is the last time I'll do this to you, but we're going to take that 10 now, and we're going to carve it down to 3. I'm going to take the top 3 that mean the most to you, the things that resonate the highest. And again, I think if you look at some of those adjectives, some of those values in your mind, they will resonate with you and mean multiple things. So go ahead and pare that down now to 3, the top 3.
Yeah, so go ahead, stop the video, pick the 3 that have the most meaning to you. Okay, you had us write it down. Do you want them to write it down?
Well, I tell you what we're going to do. If you slide to the next sheet in the PDF, you'll see that we're going to explode those values, because as we've gone through this exercise and you've gotten down to your top 3, those top 3 mean something pretty deep and personal to you as we've kind of condensed it. And if we take the time now to write that first value down and think about what that really means to you. If I say that word, what does it resonate inside of me? What is the experience I get if I have that value that is very present in my life all the time? So I want you to take those 3 values and do these 3 little questions for each one of those values, and really, really steep in those values to really get the feeling, the emotion that comes as a result of what you believe those values are.
So go ahead and stop the video and now do this exercise with your 3 values. Okay, go ahead, Phil.
In order to really get the most impact out of this, then I want to take those 3 values and I want to translate those into a personal life vision. So as an example, my personal life vision is a world where, forgive me, can you edit that out?
No, we're just doing it. It's just like you're on the stage. Go ahead.
Hey, that's great. It's a world where fulfillment results in compassion results in fulfillment, where authentic connections are made through respect, which results in exhilaration and passion for life. Forgive me, I got stage fright there for a second. That is at the base of all the emails that I send out, all of the correspondence that I do. It's sitting in front of me on my desk as a reminder.
You want to say it again?
My personal life vision is a world where compassion results in fulfillment, where authentic connections are created through respect, which results in exhilaration and passion for life. Now, that to me translates to me, and it translates to everybody in my world. You know, there's a theory that if we raise our own consciousness, that we begin to have that impact on the world. When I think that through, you know, I have a hard time seeing how I impact, you know, the guys in China. I don't know them. It's so far away. I can't get my arms around it, but I get my arms around the 100 feet around me. I can impact the people that are in my 100 feet, in my core. I can impact them. And if I can keep my personal life vision, if I can keep those values in front of me, that to me is how I'm going to make that impact. And so if I take those top 3 core values that you guys have just written down, and I break those down into a personal life vision that begins with my personal life vision is a world, is a community where, and we pull those 3 values into a sentence or a couple of sentences, that we can begin to really resonate with that. Now, I can tell you the experience in this is that you're going to initially, this is exciting because it feels like it's pulling you towards that, and it's reminding you of that, and it's pulling it out of you. And after a period of time of just really letting that personal life vision soak and steep inside of you, I think what you realize is that you were always that person. You were just reminded to stay that person. It becomes very, very powerful. Really can be an absolute life changer.
Yeah, you said something there that was like really good. You kind of reconnect with who you are. What did you say there? You reconnect with the person that you thought you were? Say that last part again. That was really good.
Well, I think what happens is that you initially are believing that this is helping you pull to the person that you want to be, bringing those values more prevalent. And I think at a point you realize that all it did was remind you of who you always were. And it helps then contain you inside of that value structure. We have less wounding, we have more authenticity, and at the root core of all of this, we get more in touch with our own personal power, with our own sense of who we are, which really, really allows us to be super authentic and really not too concerned about getting hurt in the world. We can live a much more vulnerable life. We don't have to have all the barriers and all the walls up all the time. We can live in a vulnerable place because we're very, very content with who we are.
Yeah, I remember when I did this exercise, it was it was such an eye-opener because it did reconnect me to who I am. And sometimes I forget who I am with the day-to-day and the battles that we fight and everything. And by doing the exercise, I was able to reconnect with my core, and it just completely energized me. And I'm hoping those of you that are watching, you do this exercise and you feel the same way I did and what Phil is talking about, because this is what can drive us to the future. This is what can give us the energy, the passion for life when we're connected with our core values.
Absolutely, Mario. This is so well said, what you just said. You know, when we encounter the noise of life and we counter those places in life that it's not if we're going to have complications and difficulties in life, it's just when they're going to happen. And when those things occur and we look to our personal life vision, it becomes a compass to us as to how to navigate through the problem, how to navigate through that individual situation. And when we navigate inside of that and we stay connected to our core values, it really, really connects us to our personal power and really drives us, to your point, drives us to our future.
Well, that's good. Well, I think this is a very good exercise to do it, and I wanted to do it here near the end of the summit because I want all of you to think about your life, think about your core values, why we do what we do, and there's no better way to do that than this exercise that Phil has here.
Well, I hope they get as much out of it as I know that I have, and I know that you have, and a lot of people have gone through the workshop. It can be very, very transformative. There's no question. Okay.
Was there anything else you wanted to add? Because I think that was what I really wanted to cover in our conversation.
Well, the only thing I want to add, I guess, and I've already said it, is try to decompress as much as you can in order to go through this exercise, because this exercise comes in the workshop at a particular time, and as the workshop progresses, we kind of get into that mindset, and then this comes along, and we're ready to really tune into it. So, best you can, try to relax and to tune into yourself and allow that personal feelings, that interior, to come forward to really bless you for who you are and what those adjectives mean to you.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, because I know when I did the exercise, we did it at like a classroom setting, and we were removed from our day-to-day. And so I think your point about decompressing is really helpful.
Yeah. Well, best of success to all of your watchers and listeners, and hopefully this helps us get in touch with the why, because ultimately the how and what will show up if we're really connected to the why.
Well, thank you, Phil. I appreciate you being here. This was really awesome.
Mario, I appreciate it. It's an honor. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm available anytime you need me.